Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to give a few minutes for people to join. I would like to welcome everyone. Good morning to some of you and good afternoon to the rest of you. Here we are in this new digital world, and welcome to the workshop on digitization is the new normal, which means lots of different time zones, and we have a great representation of that right here on this panel. As we get started, please make sure to use the Q&A window to ask questions to the panel. Please, if you could also put in who the question is to be addressed to, and they will be responding to your questions at the end of their discussion. I would now like to introduce our workshop moderator, Hakan Clarin, who is the Chief Information Officer of Swedish Prison and Probation Service. Just to give you a little brief background, Hakan has demonstrated history of working in the government administrative industry and is skilled in the innovative management, business development, strategic planning, and change management. He holds an executive MBA degree and is specialized in managing global R&D and innovation within large-scale organizations. So Hakan, I will now turn it over to you to go ahead and introduce the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. And I'm really happy to be here and to moderating this really interesting session. The theme of this session is about how digitization is the new normal. And we would like to explore this topic by intersecting three different lenses. And they will be presented by Srini Kishore, Simon Bonk, and Stephen van der Steen. And during these sessions, our speakers will explore how digitization can better enable and modernize correctional processes, how to leverage opportunities for digitization, and to author an enterprise approach to digital to realize correctional as well as societal outcomes. And we would also like to address how to tying the notion of digital to the principle of normality. So as you all guess, this is going to be a really interesting session, and we will talk about how to integrate these concepts into a holistic approach, both from a strategic point of view as well as an operational perspective. And we would like to address, as we see that this corrections as an industry is on the curb on a unique opportunity to modernize the practice technologically as well as socially. So let's start. And I would like to start by introduce our speakers. First off, we have Stephen van der Steen, which is an enterprise architect and a technology for corrections expert. He works as a consultant within this area, especially within innovation and technology strategy for prisons and probational services. He is also active as a researcher affiliated to the Montfort University and a board member of the ICPA Association. So I would like to welcome Stephen to this session. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Hakan.
And I would like to continue with Mr. Simon Bonk, which is the Chief Information Officer for the Correctional Service in Canada. As a CIO, Simon is responsible for engaging with his business partners to identify opportunities which could enable technology and address business challenges within the field of correction. Simon has a strong focus on transformation, as has contributed to the advancement of CSC as a forward-thinking, strategy-oriented organization. Right now, Simon is currently exploring and thinking within the space of digital strategy. How could we, through technology, data, and modern business processes, see opportunities to enhance business outcomes? And with that, welcome to this session, Simon.
Thank you so much, Hakan. Happy to be here.
And at last, I would like to introduce Srini Kishore, which is the Chief Technology Officer from the Florida Department of Corrections. Mr. Kishore joined the Florida Department of Corrections in May 2019 and serves as their Chief Technology Officer. As the CTO for the largest Florida state agency and the third largest state prison system in the nation, Mr. Kishore oversees application areas supporting the agency's mission and field operation. Mr. Kishore has more than 40 years of private and public sector experience focused on strategic technology planning, enterprise architecture, program management, organizational change, risk management, and IT business delivery. So welcome to this panel, Srini.
Thank you, Hakan. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So let us start and kick off this session with an interesting question. And I would like to start with talk about what is the true value of this digital opportunity. And when you put this in the context of corrections, what could you see for effects and true value of it? And would you like to start, Simon, to address this question?
Sure, thanks very much. I think the real opportunity with digital is that it's a catalyst. And I think in fact that catalytic effect has actually been magnified because of the COVID reality. I think all of us probably in this room have done some incredible things during COVID. It's probably perhaps a little bit outside of the norm, whether that's just simply enhancing virtual interactions for offenders, and I think as a result, when you combine the digital opportunity and coupled with COVID as almost as an incubator, I think as jurisdictions we've demonstrated that we can enhance or maintain correctional outcomes, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about this more later about the outcome side of it, because I think there's some interesting things to explore as correctional jurisdictions as what outcomes mean for each of us. But the other thing I would say is that I don't think digital is about tech, but I think it's rather how tech can enable or inspire doing things differently and reinvent how we use people, process, and technology to change service delivery and enhance performance. And I think that's probably the big thing is differentiating between technology and digital, and it's really about how it can inspire about doing things differently. And the last thing I'll say, and turn it over to my colleagues, is that I think it's a chance for us as technologists to come together and partner both internally with our business colleagues, and I think we can forge greater opportunities with when we collaborate with our internal business partners. But I also think it's an opportunity externally as well to work with our stakeholders, to work within the criminal justice space, so that we can not just benefit corrections, but also benefit the criminal justice continuum. I also think it's an opportunity to start to talk to perhaps some of our detractors as we start to think about digital and putting in place a digital strategy. I think we need to be expansive in our consultation. I think it's an opportunity to talk to people who may have ideas that perhaps are run differently to our own, to actually strengthen our way forward and our path forward. I think digital gives us that opportunity to really think about the future in a different way. I also think it's an opportunity to work with our vendor partners and talk to them about how collectively we can advance the solutioning within the correctional space. And again, allowing us to move. We do a lot of innovation, but I think innovation is often siloed and one-off. And I think we need to move towards a more strategic posture and bringing this all together. And I think that digital, the true value of digital is really that opportunity to partner and work collaboratively and collectively to achieve better outcomes.
Nice. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Simon. Stephen, would you like to complement this on this question? And I think you're on mute.
I do agree with Simon. Thank you, Simon, for giving this strategical view on the opportunities and the huge value digital has in that area. And I agree what you just mentioned about the silos, that technology could be an enabler to break the walls between the different silos. But I would like to add something on the more operational, because we are working in very operational organizations. We are working in prisons, 24/7 environments. We are working with different stakeholders in the field. So I think there is even an extended great value to achieve, a lot of opportunities lying there in improving operations. Simon and myself with a colleague in Singapore have done some work 2 years ago describing the opportunity, for example, in converging the information technology side of things and the operation technology side. We come from an environment where both worlds have always been historically separated. Technology was there done by the people responsible for the facility and the buildings and the stuff. And then you had the IT guys. They didn't talk to each other. I think there's a huge opportunity today to let them talk together and look in how digital could help to improve the way we are doing our work, and not only to improve what we have always done, but also think about new ways of doing this. And then I come to the second point, next to the opportunity you see in the merging information technology and operational technology. I think there is a huge opportunity also to do this in a balanced way, finding balances between the three angles of our work in prisons, which is security, efficiency, and rehabilitation. Technology has the power, is a catalyst, like Simon said, has the power to find balances between those. So that's a huge challenge and opportunity for us to think in that area, not only in the silo of we have to do something and use technology to increase our security, or to increase efficiency, or to do something to enable rehabilitation. No, we can do this, the three together. This is a huge opportunity, and technology has a lot of possibilities to do this. And just to add something to that, what I'm really, it's my a passion of mine during the last decade. I'm working in this area. Is trying to implement, because the theme of this this session is normalization. I think from an operational perspective, it's very interesting to look also how we could use technology to create more normalized environments for the people in custody. So this is the last, but I think crucial point that I would like to add to this conversation, and I'm convinced that there are a lot of possibilities there to think about how we can use technology to create more normalized environments. And normalized environments today is digital. Digital is a new normal. So that's a lot of opportunities from an operational perspective, I think.
And that's a nice twist there, Stephen. Digitization is the new normal, and that is what we're talking about here. So thank you very much for these perspectives, both from a strategic and operational point of view. And I would like to challenge you now, because I would like to get back to Simon's statement before. We have had COVID as a catalyst for digital, but aren't we done? Aren't we as digital as we could get? Is there really a need to implement the digital now, given that correction is functioning at an adequate level? Aren't we already as digital as we could be? From an operational point of view, Srini, would you like to give your perspective on this question?
Yeah, certainly, Hans. From the operational perspective, yes, of course, as Simon mentioned, we are somewhat connected now, and the business is pretty much normal. It's running, functioning pretty much normally without really much of an impact. However, there are other sides of the digital opportunity, which I would like to stress upon, which is basically, in fact, he mentioned it in his opening remark, service delivery and performance. Service delivery and performance. These are the areas where there is a tremendous amount of opportunity for the new digital, by which I would certainly cover upon a few of the points. Well, it's adequate for functioning, but how adequate? How do we define really adequate? Are we really functioning at peak of our capacity? Are we able to deliver everything which we can really deliver? Are we really delivering it in the most efficient way, most cost-effective way? If we really compare all these things, there are a couple of levels at which we can view the whole thing. Digital can certainly be implemented in various facets for increasing the operational efficiencies of staff to concentrate on the tasks at hand, not so much on the routine or time-consuming tasks. I'll give my favorite example for that one. Most of the prisons, I'll take prisons as an example. Most of the prisons, significant amount of time of the prison staff is spent in creating paper logs. And I'm sure this is the situation in most of the prisons across the world. I'm not saying Florida is alone in that. Significant amount of time is spent in paper logs because of the audit requirements and because of several other legislative requirements. Now, that's where I see a huge potential in improvement in operational efficiency. Staff's time can be a lot better used if we switch over to digital workflows rather than maintaining the paper logs. I see a lot of opportunity in improving safety of staff and inmates. We'll discuss them much more in detail probably later. And I see a huge opportunity. We're exploring some of the possibilities of increasing the mobility of the staff, and so that activities can be performed potentially remotely. Remotely, I don't mean to say outside the facility, but within the facility itself, like monitoring can be done remotely. There are quite a few opportunities where we are exploring all of them. So bottom line, at an operational level, though we are functioning adequately, adequately, I would rather use it loosely. There is tremendous opportunity to improve the operational efficiency, and more important than the other side of the whole thing is reduced costs. How we will probably discuss much more in detail when we talk about the other topics.
Yeah, thank you. That is really interesting. And it's a really good example that you give about how to digitize the paper work and the paper logs and how we could increase mobility from operational efficiency point of view. And if we tilt the lens towards a more strategic perspective, Stephen, would you like to give your perspective on this question?
Yes, thank you. I would like to go a little bit further on the very good example that Juni has given about paper-based processes. What I see in comparison that I've still in the middle of comparing different jurisdictions across the globe, you see huge differences in the strategic view on modernization and digitalization. You see. And often people, organizations think they are becoming digital, but just make existing physical processes digital. So just create PDF forms of paper things. This is not transformation. This is just like doing the same that we have always done. And more of it often doesn't create more efficiency, often at the contrary. So our services are full of asking people to write reports, for example, create documents. We have to report everything. But now we are digital everywhere. We have CCTV camera images. If an incident happens, why should we create like 10 pages of report if you just have it on a picture? And this picture can be used in court or in a hearing or things like that. Why should we ask staff to reproduce this written, for example? It's a mentality shift we have to create. And this has to be done together with the business. This is just a small example of things that we have to change that shift. And this has to be done together with the business. And to come back to my comparison of international correctional organizations, where I see that the government is really pushing and pushing like the premise of digital default. And during the entire governmental structure, you see that they are often advanced in that step because they are forced not only by law or legislation, but also by their neighbors, the other courts and police and other stakeholders doing the same. So they are on the same track to say, we have to think differently. And often you need that. You need to work together with the stakeholders, because if the judge doesn't accept that video instead of a 10-page document, you cannot change. So it's strategically there is a huge opportunity, but I'm convinced, as if you look at the strategic level, that there's a huge opportunity. We are not working at adequate level. We are not working efficiently enough nowhere. So there's a lot of work to do within the different stakeholders to improve what we are doing, I think.
Yeah,
I would like to add.
Thank
I
you.
would like to
Yeah,
add another point at a strategic level. In fact, if you really look at it, realization of the real social goals like reducing recidivism and reducing contraband and gang activity as examples only, are we close to them? Probably we are still somewhat far away. Then how can digital? That's a place where we have tremendous opportunity. Digital technologies, particularly the data-driven analytics, modeling, prediction of efficacy based on criminology parameters, help shape the policy and measures to be taken. This is a big advantage which can be considered at a strategic level of going digital. We are there, but not there yet. We're heading closer to that, but not there yet, totally.
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you very much for those answers. I am a true believer of digital, and your answers calms me down. I don't want this to be adequate level right now. I know there is a lot more to be done, and I think that you are giving some really good examples of what we could be doing. But if we're going to delve into what the digital means from a both strategic and operational perspective, what is this? Are these lenses complementary, or are they in opposition, or is there a combination of both? Do you have to work both from an operational perspective as well as strategic, or could you choose one perspective in that aspect. Simon, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you, Hakan. I think this is a really interesting question, and I think it touches a little bit on what I mentioned at the outset of innovation versus digital strategy, and I think there's a lot of innovation that's taking place in all of our jurisdictions. I'm not necessarily convinced that we're breaking down the silos, and as a result, digital strategy and enterprise approaches are at risk. And so I think to some degree, it's a combination of both, because I think we work in a space that's very operationally focused. And as a result, we get focused on those day-to-day operations. And I think we have a challenge of actually lifting ourselves out of the day-to-day to be able to develop the strategic. So I think there is a little bit of conflict and tension, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because in some ways the innovation, the one-offs, certainly allow us that opportunity to think about proof of concepts and pilots and things of that nature. But I think the longer term strategy is what's going to bring us to success. And I'll give you perhaps an example to illustrate my point. I think as we've been thinking about digital and virtual, we would start to, you might see in Canada as an example, we're starting to explore more virtual interactions, virtual health, virtual visits, and now virtual program delivery. At the same time, our training and learning folks are looking at how to virtualize training for staff. And each one, and I think CIOs are uniquely positioned. The only other person I think that has the horizontality of view besides the CIO of a business is perhaps the CFO, because everything has a money attached to it. But we have the opportunity because we're pulling in together these solutions. And I don't think there's that big of a difference between, say, training and program delivery for offenders and rehabilitation. But we may be building two different solutions for a very similar purpose. So I think that there is a little bit of tension at times between the operation and the strategic. And I think what that means is that as organizations and as CIOs, we need to advocate for our organizations to make space in order to develop that strategic approach and start to develop that case for change, which will allow us, Stephen mentioned culture change. And I think when we put together that strategic perspective, you're going to engage, you should be engaging broadly. It's also going to help to assist with the culture change. It's also going to help to assist with, we're going to need investment. And I think coming out of COVID, jurisdictions, governments are going to have to pay for their investment in COVID. And I think digital is a real opportunity to drive efficiency and effectiveness gains, but that's going to take some upfront investment. That strategic opportunity, that strategic business case is going to allow us to go to those people that control the purse strings to make that investment. And I think the last thing that the strategic opportunity provides is it allows us to own the narrative. I think often, I read the press clippings on a regular basis, and I think I would be very depressed if I was the commissioner, because often it's the negative press clippings. But I think a digital strategy, as opposed to an operational lens, will start to drive organizations to own the narrative. We can now put out to our government leaders, to the public, to our staff about, this is where we're headed, this is what we hope to accomplish. And I really think it's incumbent upon us as leaders in the digital space to really drive the organizations to create that space, to have that strategic opportunity and that strategic narrative, and not just stay in siloed innovation at an operational level.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's popping up new questions in my head, but I think I saved them for later. Thank you for a great answer. But if we would like to reflect it on an operational perspective, Srini, would you like to follow Simon here?
Yeah. In fact, Simon brought out one very good point, that there is always some tension between operational and strategic as far as from my perspective is concerned. However, if we view it from operational lens, what digital really means is technology which can help connectivity for better and effective communications, tools and technologies which help staff make informed and timely decisions, particularly using the data-driven decision-making process, which helps them reduce errors in judgment on a day-to-day basis. tools which help capture staff experience, which can guide the newbies make appropriate decisions. Because in fact, the experience is the most important thing, which as new people come in, how do the people pass on the experience? This is where digital can certainly help them. And technology which helps staff improve their operational efficiencies by increasing automation. Again, my favorite example, which I took earlier, reduce the mundane logging and capture report for better evidence, etc. Now, if you really talk about technology which helps increase safety of the institutions, bottom line, in my personal opinion, strategic and operational lenses are complementary to each other, and one cannot live without the other. And it sets a direction, and other implements that direction. Strategic sets the direction, operational implements the direction.
And that's a really good answer. To set the direction and implement it from an operational point of view. And maybe as well, if you focus on the operations, maybe you could create this strategic opportunity and own the narrative, as Simon was talking about. I would like to delve into this a bit more. We were talking about the case of change, and how are you going to set up this business case when you are in an environment when you're have to deal with the post-COVID situation. Your prisons are overcrowded and you have operational challenges up here. And now some CIO guys come and talk about digital. How do you create that case of change and how do you make it happen? And to be more precise, I really would like to know what is required from you to realize a digital future in corrections, and how could you talk about this and make it happen? How do you get the money? How do you get best friends with the CFO? And here I would like to start from an operational point of view and ask Stephen to start off.
Yeah, very interesting question, and I think a question that a lot of the people in the audience will also struggle with. How can you create that change? How can you really realize that change? Maybe some first response to that. I think we are missing a lot of things, and one of the things that we often miss is the material to build our business case. There is not much evidence out there about the impact, the positive impact on using technology to improve things. Even on the security or the rehabilitation, on the efficiency level, none of them there is a lot of evidence. So it's already a kind of question to everyone. If you do something, implement, measure, and evaluate, and share this with the people. And that is already a first thing I would like to advocate here is collaboration between all of us, within CTA, within ICPA, internationally, but also within your organization with the stakeholders, because probably the technology you will think of using on an operational level could maybe in a similar way already be used in a hospital or somewhere else. So it's about collaboration, it's about sharing, it's about come out of your room. You don't need that physical place office anymore. You can use Zoom and then other digital means to communicate with each other and share outcomes, and that will help everyone to build business cases, because that's the first struggle a lot of people have, is convince that finance guy that it's worth investing. The second thing is, I think, public opinion and correctional organizations as a whole, and also correctional technology departments, they are often very shy. They don't come out. They don't share what they are doing. You should do that. You should influence public opinion. When I've started the self-servicing project in Belgium, I think it was the first presentation was in 2008, something like that. We've invited the media into the prison to explain that. We invited the ministers. So you have to work on that change. It will not happen by itself. You have to work on this. So of course you need evidence, you need things to prove your business cases, but you have to work also with all the stakeholders, including the media, including policymakers, including also all the people, lobbying groups for offenders, for example, and NGOs. Include them, bring them together, and this will help you to make the change. So those are, I think, the very important things we often forget if we wanted to. And this has nothing to do with the technology as such. So even we are technology guys, and we love technology, and we write, work with the code and test things. Just take a little bit distance and first look at the organization and talk to your neighbors and talk to everyone and try to convince and share and collaborate.
Yeah, this is a really good tip, because you can start this tomorrow on your ongoing projects. Just to shift your mindset, you could reach out to others, you could search for that positive evidence, and you could make collaborations with your stakeholders, your business partners, your vendors, and so forth. And maybe, as you say, Stephen, even look over the wall to see if there are any other technologies out there which could help me in my projects. Yeah, this is a really good operational perspective. If you look at this question from a more strategic point of view, what could we find then? Srini, would you like to go there?
Sure.
Yeah,
In
thank you.
fact, Stephen brought some very, very valid viewpoints. And then I think, as you said, we can start tomorrow, and why not we could. However, in the lighter vein, I would say the CIOs and CTOs, all of us, we need to acquire new skills, which are more of, we need to be more of salesmen in addition to being technologists. Because fundamentally what is required is, as I think Simon mentioned it earlier, we need to get a buy-in from all the levels of leadership by showing tangible benefits and potential cost savings at operational, agency, and at societal level. So that's one of the things which we need to be able to take it to them and sell the technology. And so, in fact, Stephen brought out a very good point, spin-off from other areas. What we can, in the process of building up the strategic viewpoint to this one, we can show how some of the technologies have been effectively utilized in other areas, particularly focusing on what are the common areas, commonalities between the other areas where the technologies are implemented, and the corrections. Where are the common areas where we can leverage the existing technology easily? And in fact, from the strategic point of view, we need to be able to convince the leadership at all levels that implementing the technology and tools for meeting overall objectives, which will help them make changes to the measures which they take to give better predictable results for meeting overall goals. And of course, implementing the technology and tools which provide access to, this is important to me particularly, implement technology and tools which gives one version of truth, shareable aggregate data, and results of analytics whenever, wherever. So these are the things which can show as tangible benefits to the leadership at all levels, with which we will be able to sell the concept of going digital. We are digital, but going better.
Yeah, really, really interesting, I would say. And I'm going to learn new skills and going to be a salesman. That is really nice. Thank you for that answer, Srini. And I think that identifying the common areas and work with leaderships on all levels, I think this is really, really crucial in order to succeed. But if we then are going on this journey and we are going to succeed, we have created our case of change, we have got the CFO in our hand, and we are going to do these mighty projects. What outcomes could we expect? What could digital corrections support? What is their outcomes for our corrections? And how can then these be achieved by technology? Simon, would you like to start here?
Sure, thanks. And then I'm going to get up on a bit of a soapbox here, folks, if you'll forgive me, because this is, I think, something that's incredibly critical at this juncture. I alluded before about governments having to pay for the COVID investment, and understandably so. I would advocate that. I think that this is going to result in some sort of cost optimization exercise that's going to be put in place in the future, and that quite bluntly means probably reduction of budgets. I think digital can certainly help us in this space, but I also think the competition for an early investment is going to be fierce between corrections and other public services, border services, tax administration, environment, et cetera. And I think that I've been doing a little bit of work and research in this space recently as it relates to outcomes. And I think often when we talk about correctional outcomes, we talk about things like recidivism, we talk about rehabilitation, we talk about safety and security in our institutions. And while compelling within our own circles, I'm not necessarily convinced that it resonates with the decision makers who are allocating budgets. And I think that we as CIOs and chief technology officers need to drive our organizations to elevate our outcomes and start to think about our outcomes in a societal perspective. I think that will start to resonate more with the policymakers. And I think that what we need to do is start to take a look at something like recidivism as an example and link that to improved GDP or stronger Indigenous communities or violence against women or improvement of racialized groups. And then I've been doing a little bit of research on research in this space, and I think it's somewhat limited. I think it speaks both to what Stephen and Srinivas were talking about earlier in terms of selling this, but also about sharing. And as organizations, when we start to develop these type of storylines and this focus on outcomes and elevating those outcomes, I think we'll all be better for it. But there seems, when we talk about, as an example, research, say, on income, often that income is focused on, or that storyline rather is focused on, what the income level is. But I would rather see it as a storyline of, even if the employment income isn't optimal or where we would like it to be, and obviously we want to continue to work on the employability of our rehabilitated offenders, what I would like to see that story evolve to is, how is that reduce the need of social assistance in different jurisdictions, and start to understand that story in greater detail. And I think from an outcomes perspective, I think that would be very powerful for all of us. And I think the other thing is, as we think about maybe perhaps more operational outcomes, I think it starts to talk a little bit about what Steve was talking about, normalcy. And if we can have some of the technology available that we have available to us today in society, I can't help but think that notion of normalcy would be promoted. And again, linking it back to societal outcomes, I think would be very powerful. So thank you for the opportunity to get up on a soapbox and maybe advocate for some sharing in this space if people agree with me.
Yeah, I'm totally agreeing with you, Simon. And this is really a new take on how to make your return on investment from a societal point of view. And I think this is what we need in order to drive digital change the right way. Stephen, would you like to add on to this question and give your perspectives?
Yes, I really would like to continue what Simon is saying. It's very interesting, and maybe I'm not that negative on the budget, but of course I'm not CIO anymore, so maybe that has something to do with that. But what I see is that I know more in detail from Europe, but I also I saw images of the US president signing a huge relaunch check for the economy and things like that. In Europe, I see that this money is also being attributed to a lot of member states, countries, and that can be used. And I've also heard from some concrete practices to do some innovation work and to do some more strategical digital work. And there's a lot of focus within Europe anyway on digital and on sustainability. So I think there are some opportunities there, and there is some money over there that maybe if we are creative, I don't know how it's attributed in the US, I don't know that, but probably there is also some envelopes for justice and public safety. We can maybe try to find that money and to do some innovative things, because I completely agree with Simon that we have the return on investment of corrections is only to be seen on a society level and not just within the walls of a prison. It's almost impossible to see the real return on investment. So I completely agree and promote the principle of normality. I've already mentioned that the possibilities we have there, but I would like to add something to that, because I don't know how familiar you are with the recent evolution in criminology sciences, but you see a huge shift going on from more traditional rehabilitative approaches towards the desistance model. And I don't go too much into detail about that, but what we see there is that people and academics from all over the world see that maybe we should shift much more to creating a rehabilitative environment, creating an environment, an environment based on of course buildings, but also processes, technology, and people that will empower the inmates, giving them more responsibility so that they can rehabilitate themselves. And that's in fact the core thing that I think technology has a huge power we can do. So an example is a couple of years ago, we've tried already a similar concept in the new facility in the Netherlands, in Zaanstad, where we allowed prisoners to move more freely. And the idea behind that was like, let's shape a normal life and use technology to do the security, not the human beings. The human beings should be doing human things and not monitoring. That we have cameras and we have a lot of technology for that. So do that, give them the possibility to set his alarm clock in the morning so he wakes up himself and not waiting for somebody knocking on the door, wakes up himself, takes a coffee, go working, things like that. And just one thing that convinced me that I think this is the future of corrections is at the CTA conference. I remember, I think a couple of years ago, a guy talking about entrepreneurship. I think it's Schuniger or someone. Probably the audience will remember. It was a very interesting keynote speech at the CTA conference. And the guy was explaining how many decisions people make on an average and how he is helping entrepreneur skills to increase those number of decisions. And the people we have in our prisons are those people who just made some bad decisions. So what are we doing today? In most of the prisons, we are taking away all the possibilities to make decisions themselves. They even cannot decide when to get up or when to take a shower, nothing. And then we expect, if they come out, that they will take and learn to take good decisions. This is not normal. Huh? So we talk about normalization, we have to work on that. And technology has a huge potential to create learning, rehabilitative environments from our prisons and just help us to work towards that.
Wow. Thank you for that perspective, Stephen. This is really, really nice. Before I was the CIO for the Swedish Prison and Probation Service, I was working within the healthcare industry as the CIO over there. We've put a lot of emphasis on the rehabilitative rehab environments because there is a positive evidence on making them really good for the patients. You could diminish or what do you say? Make it a better space for the patients. So I think this is really interesting, and it could be really worth exploring within the prison and probation space as well. And I like what you're talking about. Let the tech do the security things and let the human do the human things. And that is also a good perspective within going digital. But I would like to shift our focus towards the part of making decisions. When you talk about digital, you could make digital services making decisions for you. There is a lot of debate about the AI and have to use data and information and make decisions from a computer, like machine learning and so forth. And this leads me into that technology puts a lot of risks at the table, and it has to be used responsibly, and you have to be careful in some aspects. And I would like to hear the panel about this, how technology can be used responsibly and effectively to realize this digital vision of corrections and balancing the risks that we see as well. So I would like to start off from a strategic point of view, and I would like to invite Srini to start this question.
Sure. The technology provides us a lot of flexibility in doing things, and it aids us do things much more effectively and efficiently. However, with this flexibility also comes the responsibility of using it appropriately. In fact, you took a very nice example of making AI-supported decisions. Data-driven decision making. In fact, yesterday in Stephen's session, he was talking about artificial intelligence, particularly ANI. In fact, I caught onto the term ANI, which is pretty much close to on data mining and predicative analysis. So both are, the border between the two is very narrow. That technology can be very effectively used for making policy decisions or creating the programs. However, at the best, these should be used only for recommending and not for actually making decisions on behalf of human beings. Well, there are some situations where this can effectively make decisions for us, particularly those which do not really impact long-term things, or which have an impact on the security. Those kind of things, certainly we will be able to use AI-based decision making for making a decision. However, in most of the situations, particularly when it has got to process a huge number of parameters, and based on parameters, decisions have got to be taken, human-like decisions, it is always, we have got to use it responsibly, using it only for recommending solutions to us rather than making decisions for us. In addition to that one, if we really talk about technology, ethical and moral considerations have got to be given utmost importance, as it relates to, particularly as it relates to the business of corrections. Example, biometrics, use of biometrics, more so the facial recognition technologies which are in the forefront of biometrics nowadays. Well, they provide lots of advantages to increase the operational efficiencies of the processes. However, we all know they have tremendous potential for misuse too, if not used properly. And if we really talk about that way, mechanisms which we provide for connectivity, in other words, let's say network and Wi-Fi, whatever connectivity mechanisms we provide, there is tremendous potential for misuse of the technology there. Likewise, in any solution which we consider as a digital solution, technology solution, should give adequate importance to the security and protect integrity of the information systems. So these are the things which I would view at a strategic level of importance, which we need to address when we really talk about implementing digital technologies.
Thank you. Really, really interesting perspective. And let me see. Stephen, would you like to add on to this question?
Yes, thank you, Hakan. Yeah, you probably know, but I have been doing a lot of work on the ethical principles and using technology together with Dr. Victoria Knight at Montfort University, and also very interesting conversations with the Council of Europe and so on. I think I completely agree with what Srini is saying. We have to be careful, and the ethical moral guidelines are needed. And I'm always referred to developing ethical principles, and this comes from my enterprise architecture background. So you design, but first you agree with your customers about some principles, and it don't have to be like as steady as the Bible, but they would give you guidelines, and anything you would question them, you have to go open that conversation again. You really have to be careful. But something I would like to add to that is, I think we as technology experts have a very important role to play, because what you often see is that people who are not aware of the technology often often do these conversations in a black-white kind of way. They talk about biometrics, but this doesn't exist, biometrics. There's so many different flavors of biometrics, and so many different ways of how long do you keep your data, where do you store your data, in what format your data, what do you share, and so on and so on. You know it better than me. So we have a very important role to play, to be very transparent and to say, hey guys, tell me what you want. What are the limits? What are the boundaries? What are the privacy rules? And we can find a solution for you just by doing this. There is a lot of lack of transparency and knowledge, but people who are having the discussion in hand today. And I think we have a very important role if we talk about implementing technology, and also not to nuance and explain how it's used, but also to learn that technology is made by humans and can be changed by humans, and we can make it in a way that it will be compliant with ethical and moral principles.
Thank you. A very good combined answer to a difficult question. I like this one. We're talking about suggested use, we're talking about transparency, recommendations, not decisions, and to use guidelines to guide us during the use of technology within our correctional space. We have about 8 minutes left, and I have two really interesting questions from the audience, and I would like to challenge the panel with these questions. And I would like to start with a question from Emily, which sounds like, how can we balance using technology to empower people with errors in technology that may disempower people? Who would like to go first? Simon, would you like to start?
Sure, I'll take a crack. This is an interesting question because I don't think it's necessarily unique to digital. I think this is a challenge regardless of medium, regardless of tool, regardless of the business process that we employ. As an example, if you know, I think many of us still have many paper processes linked to our correctional business, and I suspect we have errors in paper too. And you know, we've noted the time down wrong, or you know, we make errors there. I think so. So I think some of this just comes down to risk management, risk mitigation, and really promoting and then Stephen talked a little bit about this, but I think we have to educate folks in that sometimes I think technology and digital can be new and scary, and there's a change management aspect to it all. And I think, you know, working with our business partners so that they understand the risks, that they understand the change, and really address that because I think we're a risk averse culture, generally speaking, and risk isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's a likelihood component, there's a magnitude component, and I think understanding the risk is what's critical and what's key. And then, of course, is the mitigation aspect, so that if these errors occur, the risk is realized and becomes an issue, we are already predisposed to what that solution will be. And I don't think this is any different than if it's in a traditional paper format, or if it's in a technological format. I think it's understanding the risk and developing those mitigation approaches. And then I think sometimes what happens is when we think about risk mitigation, it's like we're checking the box, and we just yep, we've done a risk mitigation, but we haven't really truly thought through it. And I think a little bit more discipline in this space is what's critical. But I think the other piece is that culture change, that understanding that we can promote as leaders in the space.
Yeah, thank you. Srini, would you like to add on to this question? And you're on mute.
In fact, Simon touched upon one of the major points. Quick thing is, how can we balance using technology to empower people with errors in technology that may disempower people? In other words, wrong choice of technology which may disempower people versus good choice of technology which is appropriate. In fact, the point here is choosing the appropriate technology which will empower the people.
Yeah.
Rather than providing some technology in the hands of people which doesn't really help them do their job better. So here, in my viewpoint, choosing the appropriate technology for the appropriate purpose is something which will really empower the people.
Nice finishing touch. Thank you very much. And we have about room for the last question, and this is addressed to you, Stephen. And this is about your thoughts on humans doing human things rather than security. But how do you get past the current paradigm?
Thank you. It's not an easy. I don't have an easy magic solutions for this, but I think there's a lot of things we have to do. But most importantly, we have to talk to different stakeholders, including the people who are writing the curricula for recruiting staff. The profile of our staff needs to change, and this is maybe frightening a lot of people, but this is happening in all business, in all sectors today. The profiles are changing. We have to think about that. And I think there's also an opportunity, because I don't know how it is in the US, but I know in Europe, a lot of European countries and in Asia specific, there is difficulty in finding people to do the traditional security job in prison. So maybe there's an opportunity there to shift that. You have to know that in some countries, like in Norway, the training for a job is over 2 years to become a security officer. So there's a lot of work in that area. Which kind of profiles we want to do? And I'm convinced that if you talk to the people, there are a lot of people already working that will be very motivated to change and to train and to learn new things and new skills and to shift a little bit away. You also have to convince them that it's possible by, again, comparing with other countries and other very good examples that this can work. So it's a complicated thing, but you have to talk with different people, and it has a lot to do with skills, trainings, and daring to change what we have always done into something new and show that this works. And then so it's about change management and at all levels. That will be my response to this.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And I think this is a good question that sums up this this session. And the time is out. I would like to give you all a good thank you for a really good discussion. And I hope you in the audience enjoyed this this panel discussion. And I think we will stop right there and giving the floor back to you, Laura.
Thank you. I want to thank all of the panelists. You did an excellent job just having a timely and interesting discussion on this topic. It just reminds me of the value of CTA in bringing us all together to be able to network and collaborate. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity. And also it's nighttime for Hakan and Stephen. Thank you for giving up your evening to spend with us. As a reminder, the exhibit hall is open, and check back in an hour and a half for offender communication workshop. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.